Hello, Rabbi.
Good evening, Joe.
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
It is
Uh,
February.
and so many people today, because our weather has been zigzagging back and forth, we're very cranky about the cold once again entering into our lives. Just a day or two ago, it was in the 50s, and kids were outside in t-shirts and shorts playing on the playground. And again, now it's in the 20s, and everybody's going, when will this winter be over? When will COVID be over? And ranting about this, that, or the other thing, which they have absolutely no control over. My response is always, next time I run into God, I'll tell him that you're pissed and see if he does anything about it. But what do we do? What does the Torah say about ranting and yelling and venting?
Oh, lots of neat things. But here in DC, it was in the 60s a couple of days ago. Maybe where you are in the Commonwealth, it was cooler than here. But we've had beautiful, and that really annoys me. We had all this great weather, Joe. Now, all of a sudden, it's seasonal. Now, who thought that one up? We should have spring all the time. It should be like San Diego here in DC. Why should we have to put up with snow and all this bad weather that's going on? The prophet, I don't know, it was Isaiah or Jeremiah, walked around naked with a yoke around his neck to get people's attention because nobody would act on his teachings. And his teachings were very simple. The Hebrew prophets, they didn't ask you to do any ritual. They didn't ask anything that was partisan. All they said was do the right thing, love the Lord your God, take care of the widow, the orphan, the veteran, the homeless, take care of people who can't look out for themselves, stop hoarding money. And they pointed to the kings and said, you're taxing the people for your grandiose life, and the people are suffering. And then the kings put a price on the head of all the Hebrew prophets. And when that happened, they headed down to Egypt, where they could seek sanctuary and be safe. And then they would come back and tell the same thing again. But they never said any specific rituals. But to get attention, they walked backwards. They went around naked. They wore a yoke. It's the biblical version of ranting. And some of the teachings of the Hebrew prophets sound like a modern news commentator ranting about something, going on with anger and sentence after sentence. And that's really neat, Joe, if you are a commentator or a prophet and you want to get people's attention. And I think the rant is a very valuable theatrical tool. I think for you and me, and for those of you out there, it's not a good tool. It alienates people. It makes us look petty. And in the end, we focus on things we cannot change. We focus on the past. Do you know, I still remember what my elementary school teacher, Mr. Eldridge, did. I remember him, and I'm thinking of digging him up just to yell at him again. And I'm not going to forget how he treated me in fourth grade. What does that do except hurt me, get me to focus on that which was instead of that which is, to try to justify what? Things happen in our lives, Joe, and some things are upsetting and disturbing.
But surely you're not promoting complacency, Rabbi. Should we just adapt to any situation?
I keep coming back to the beginning of the Serenity Prayer, the difference between the things I can change and the things I can't. And too often we focus on things we can't change because we don't want to take action. This isn't about complacency. I think it's even scarier. We are really afraid. We're afraid to do things. And therefore, we're going to keep focusing on what was. Look, I love watching the weather. We now have a channel, the Weather Channel. So I started timing the weather. They would spend 90% of the time telling me what was. I don't have to know what the weather was. I want them to predict the future weather. I know yesterday I was outside, and yet they spend 90% of the time. Why? Because they're afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of criticism. They're afraid, lots of fear going on. So rather than predicting, they review the weather. And the news does that very often. Sometimes they'll do a so far back that doesn't really matter right now. Just tell me what's going on currently. And so I watch a news story about a shooting, and I timed it. 90% are about what already happened. You told me one sentence. There was a shooting, a stray bullet, a child got hurt, child may have gotten killed. Okay, how's the investigation coming? Who are the suspects? All very vague. There's something comforting, Joe, about reporting on the past. And I think that's what ranting does.
Isn't being unreasonably upset about something the way to get things done, to get things changed? I'm reminded of the old saying, reasonable people try to adjust to the world around them. Unreasonable people expect the world to just adjust to what they want. Therefore, all change is accomplished by unreasonable people.
That was an unreasonable person who said that because they're looking out for their own interest. No, that's not true at all. Because when we get caught up in, we don't have the energy to change or do something. Reasonableness means I look and see what I can change and I change it. And what we find is anger, being upset, doesn't accomplish anything. Think of Muhammad Ali. His boxing style was to so annoy his opponent that his opponent was thrown off balance. That's a perfect example. You cannot box if you're angry. You cannot play football if you're angry. You can't have a good discussion if you get angry, because all you do is start spewing things that don't hold together. And one of the goals is to make your opponent angry. That's when they make mistakes. That's when they act stupid. So no, it's not about unreasonableness, and it's not about not getting upset. Get upset, certainly. Then you stop and go, what good is my ranting and focusing on the past? Where is it getting me? Where is it leading me? What is the specific problem? Why do I want to dig up Mr. Eldridge? And why do I keep bringing him up? If I stop bringing him up, I will have forgotten. And that's another thing we do, Joe. We keep bringing stuff up, and that way it never goes into the past. It's always ruining my current life. And the rant has a place in the news. Or if I'm preaching, it might be an effective way to get my audience to go, if I start as a tool. However, doesn't really help in everyday or with our partners.
Well, but sometimes it helps. It's cathartic to vent on occasion.
Yes, that's different. That's different. I'm a therapist, and I'm more than glad to sit and listen to you rant and rave at $100 an hour. You can do that, Joe, as I'm willing. Hey, that's fine. Not a problem. And then when you're done, let's look at why you're here and what we need to change and what we need to do. I'm madder than you know what, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Okay, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to change in your life? Who are you going to vote for? What change are you going to bring about? Granted, you're madder than hell. So you're going to stand and shout out the window, or you're going to do something.
So ranting is handy as an emotional release, but it doesn't really accomplish anything.
Think about colleagues we've worked with at a meeting who started ranting, and we all waited for them to stop, and the meeting went on. They had a valid point, but because of their presentation, it was sidelined. Had they come in with a PowerPoint and done a presentation, it would have been effective. But ranting, and if you look at it, show me where ranting has really affected change or made anything happen.
Well, it might get you elected president, but we won't go there. Thank you so much, Rabbi. Your wisdom is always comforting and calming.
And I have an opening on Tuesday at 11 o'clock if you'd like me to listen to you.